There is a moment before the words, when a man first sees you. Something ancient rises within him. A hush in his breath, a pause in his step, a softening in his gaze. This moment is small but sacred. And if you learn to recognize this greeting, not the words, but the energy, you will know something that countless hearts have missed. Love does not shout. It recognizes, stay with this reflection until the end, because by the last breath of this journey, you will not only understand what it means when a man greets you like this, you will begin to greet yourself that way. And that will change everything. There is a language older than words. It does not speak in syllables or sounds, but in the stillness between moments, in the way someone shows up when they see you, in the breath they take before they speak, in the weight or the weightlessness of their presence. When a man greets you, he is not just saying hello. He is revealing the quality of his awareness, the clarity of his affection, and the depth of his emotional world. Some greetings are hollow echoes. Others carry the quiet thunder of truth. Presence is the loudest form of love. When a man is truly present with you, you will know. Not because he says the right words, but because everything else falls away. His attention, undivided, his eyes unhurried, his posture still. In that moment, time slows as if the world bows to the meeting between two souls. It is in this quiet intensity that love speaks its clearest language. Presence is not a gift wrapped in noise. It is a state of being cultivated in silence. And a man who greets you with full presence is not just being polite. He is offering his most precious currency, his awareness. In a time when attention is endlessly fractured, when people drift through conversations like ghosts, true presence becomes an act of devotion. There is an old Zen parable of a student who came to his master and asked, "What is the essence of love?" The master, without saying a word, simply sat down and looked deeply into the student's eyes. He did not speak. He did not blink. He just sat, breathing gently, eyes rooted in stillness. Minutes passed like falling petals. Finally, the student began to cry. "Now you know," the master said softly. In that silent gaze, the student was seen, not judged, not analyzed, simply seen as he was. And for the first time, he felt what it meant to be met fully by another human being. This is presence. It is not what we do for someone. It is how we be with them. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a quiet forest. You have walked all day. The sun is low. You are tired, uncertain. Then suddenly a deer steps from the trees. It does not run. It does not speak. It simply sees you. And in that quiet recognition, something inside you softens. That is what presence does. It reminds us we are not invisible. In daily life, you may not notice presence in its subtle forms. It could be the man who doesn't interrupt you, who waits until you finish your thought. The one who listens with his body, not just his ears, who does not glance at the clock or his phone. Who, even in silence, makes you feel accompanied. He is not trying to impress you. He is trying to meet you. Presence is rare because it requires discipline. It asks a person to lay down their distractions, to empty their cup, to offer their full awareness without expectation. It is not about being interesting. It is about being interested. And in this still gaze, in this slow breath, in this open heart, love takes form. The Roman Stoic Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But true presence listens not just with ears, but with the soul. It does not prepare a reply. It absorbs, it reflects, it honors. And so, when a man greets you with presence, listen not only to his words, listen to his silence. Look for the space he creates for you to exist fully without shrinking. Because in that space, love does not beg, it belongs. As we journey deeper, a second truth unfolds gently before us. Attention is the modern rarity. In an age of endless scrolling, of headlines designed to hijack the mind, attention has become a disappearing art. The ability to offer full, undivided focus is no longer common. It is a practice. And in the realm of human connection, it is a form of reverence. When a man gives you his complete attention as he greets you, when his energy, eyes, and heart land fully on your presence, he is offering something more valuable than a compliment or a gift. He is saying, "You are worth my stillness." Attention is more than looking. It is the act of making someone feel seen in a world that constantly pulls our gaze elsewhere. And when a man is truly crazy about you, his attention does not scatter. It roots itself in you like a tree choosing where to grow. There is a teaching from the Shaolin tradition: where your attention goes, your energy flows. A warrior knows that focus is life. In battle, in training, and in love, divided attention is weakness. Single-pointed attention is power. Consider the flame of a candle. When the wind is wild, flame flickers, but in still air, it steadies, glows, and warms. Attention is the still air in which love's flame can burn. And so when a man's attention does not wander, but lingers on you like dawn on a quiet lake, you know that something deeper moves beneath the surface. Let us imagine a simple story. A woman once walked into a tea house, weary from her journey. She sat down across from a stranger. They did not speak at first, but the stranger put down his book, closed it without a sound, and simply looked at her, not with curiosity, not with expectation, but with quiet compassion. As if to say, "You do not need to be interesting here. You only need to be." She later recalled that moment as the most peaceful in years, not because of what was said, but because someone's attention gave her space to breathe. In real life, this might look like the man who does not look away when you speak, even if what you say takes time to unfold. The one who nods not to agree, but to assure you he is still with you. The one who notices when your eyes dim, who asks how you really are, and waits for the real answer. His attention is not stolen by the next thing. It stays with you even in the quiet. The philosopher Simone Weil once wrote, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." In this way, it is not just an act of love. It is love. Because to truly attend to someone, to bring your whole being to a single moment, is to honor them as sacred. But this kind of attention cannot be faked. It must be chosen. Chosen again and again like a monk returning to the breath. It must be practiced, not only in relationships, but within ourselves. We must first learn to offer this attention inward, toward our own thoughts, our own breath, our own silence. Only then can we offer it to others. A distracted mind cannot love deeply. A divided heart cannot hold another fully. And so, when you are greeted not just with words, but with attention, when a man sees you as if nothing else exists in that instant, do not brush it off. Recognize it as rare. Receive it with the same presence with which it is offered. Because in that brief exchange, something timeless occurs. The noise of the world falls away. Two flames flicker in still air, and for a moment, nothing else is needed. We began with the idea that love speaks loudest in silence. Now we know it is heard only through presence and attention. These are not passive qualities. They are living, breathing choices. They are the foundations upon which all deep connection is built. As you walk your path, may you learn to recognize this language. The way a greeting can hold depth. The way attention can cradle the soul. The way presence can speak when words fall silent. And in doing so, may you not only recognize love when it greets you, but greet love yourself with the same devotion, awareness, and grace. There are moments in life when the simplest gesture becomes a doorway to something sacred. A name, so often used in passing, can become a mantra, a breath of reverence, a quiet declaration of belonging. When a man speaks your name with gentleness, with intention, with a kind of inner stillness, he is not merely calling for your attention. He is summoning the part of you that longs to be seen without needing to perform. In this way, the way he says your name is a meditation. Many speak names to claim or to command, but there are rare few who speak a name the way a monk might ring a bell, slowly, humbly, aware that the sound will echo long after the moment has passed. The syllables carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are full of presence, full of meaning, full of care. And that fullness tells you more than 1,000 declarations of affection ever could. There is a story once told in a mountain temple. A young disciple came to his master in frustration and said, "I feel unseen by others. I walk through life like a shadow." The master handed him a single flower and asked him to walk to the edge of the village. And when someone spoke his name with care, real care, he was to give them the flower. The disciple walked for days. People greeted him, called to him, some even praised him. But none said his name as if it were more than sound. At last, an old woman looked at him gently, eyes soft, and said, "Ah, there you are, child." In her voice, he felt something shift within. He handed her the flower. "Why her?" the master later asked. The disciple replied, "Because in her voice, I remembered I exist. The voice that calls your name with reverence returns you to yourself. In the stillness of a name spoken this way, there is healing. For the world often asks us to prove our worth, to announce our identity, to wear masks that help us fit in. But when someone greets you with your name and fills it not with urgency, but with calm, then for that moment, you are no longer required to earn your place. You simply ever are. In the rhythms of everyday life, you might encounter this in subtle moments. When someone says your name and lingers, not rushing forward with their own agenda. When their voice softens just slightly, not from weakness, but from awareness. When they do not say your name to get your attention, but to offer theirs. It might be the way they say it when you've been quiet and they're inviting you back into the room. Or the way they say it when they want to make sure you feel seen without being put on display. This kind of greeting does not demand. It invites. It does not perform. It as recognizes. It is no wonder that in many spiritual traditions, names are considered sacred. In some temples, a practitioner is given a new name to reflect their inner transformation, yet that name is not used loosely. It is whispered like a breath, as if even sound should bow to the soul it addresses. The Chinese poet and recluse Han Shan once wrote, "The sound of your name in my breath, like wind through bamboo, stays long after I have stopped speaking." This quote, often forgotten in the noise of louder teachings, reminds us that to speak a name with presence is to weave it into the silence. In nature, you will find this same truth echoed quietly. The call of a bird to its mate is not random noise. It is tuned by time and affection, softened by longing. Each sound carries not just information, but connection. And just as the forest responds to the voice it knows, so do we bloom. When our name is spoken with care, the way a man says your name is a mirror of his inner world. If it is rushed, perhaps his thoughts are elsewhere. If it is flat, perhaps his heart is guarded. But if it is spoken like a poem, without flourish, yet with presence, then you are being met in the rarest of ways. Let this bring us gently to a deeper awareness, one that lives not in words, but in the body itself. For there are truths that cannot be hidden by the mouth, no matter how clever the speech. There is a language older than language, the body. And here we arrive at another sacred sign, one that needs no translation. Energy doesn't lie before a man speaks. Before his words reach your ears, his energy reaches your intuition. You feel it before you understand it. His shoulders may relax in your presence. His breath may deepen. His chest may soften, not out of weakness, but out of sincerity. These are the signs of a heart that does not need armor with you. His very posture speaks, "You are safe with me." In the Shaolin way, a master once told his disciple, "The heart bows before the body does." It means that when we feel deep reverence or love, our body responds before our mind catches up. A man may not yet know he loves you, but his body already does. It tells the truth. It cannot pretend ease where there is fear, nor stillness where there is unrest. When a man relaxes into your presence, it is not because he has let his guard down. It is because he no longer feels he needs one. There is a parable of a warrior who visited a sacred temple after years of battle. He asked the monk at the gate, "How do I know I am ready to put down my sword?" The monk did not answer. He simply poured tea. As he did, the warrior's shoulders slowly dropped, his fingers uncurled, his breath steadied. The monk finally said, "You just told me." In the quiet, the body speaks truth. Real love is not made of tension, it is made of rest. When someone is at peace with you, when their presence becomes unguarded, when their laughter loses its defense and their silence is not empty but full of ease, these are the signs, the ones not spoken but felt. You may notice this in daily life more often than you realize. A man's smile might not be wide, but it is soft. His hands may not touch you, but they open rather than close. His stance is not rigid, it flows slightly leaning in, like a river moving toward the sunlight. His energy gravitates toward yours, not because he is trying, but because he cannot help it. This is how you know. You know, not because he tells you over and over again, but because in his body you see something surrendering. You feel it in the quiet way he shows up and doesn't leave, in the way he becomes present, not by trying harder, but by letting go of effort. And just as a leaf falls without resistance when autumn comes, a heart in love softens into presence without needing to explain why. 13th century mystic Ibn Arabi once wrote, "My heart has become capable of every forms, a pasture for gazelles, a monastery for monks. Wherever love appears, there is my religion. Such love does not live in form, it lives in feeling." And when a man's energy shifts in your presence, not in bursts of grand displays, but in the quiet, subtle changes that only the attentive notice, then you are not just seen. You are felt. This awareness is the bridge between the way a name is spoken and the way a body speaks. They are not separate. The one who calls you gently also touches the world gently. The one who offers presence through sound offers peace through stillness. And so the journey continues, not to decode every word spoken or every action taken, but to feel what lies beneath them. The undercurrent, the breath, the softness, because in that field beyond performance, beyond pretense, beyond fear, that is where love lives. Let these reflections stay with you not as answers, but as questions worth returning to. How does he say your name? What does his presence offer your silence? What truth does his body tell before his words arrive? These are not questions of romance alone. Questions of awareness, of discernment, of awakening. The way someone greets you reveals the quality of their spirit. But more than that, it reminds you how to greet yourself with care, with stillness, with truth. And perhaps that is the deeper teaching. Not just to recognize love in another, but to become it so fully, so clearly, that even in your own stillness, your body, your breath, your voice speaks only truth. There is a gaze that speaks even when the mouth is silent. A gaze that does not seek to possess, impress, or devour, but rather to witness. It is in this kind of gaze that you begin to understand the difference between being looked at and being truly as seen. When a man is deeply moved by you, not in lust, not in fleeting curiosity, but in the quiet way that all lives in the heart, His eyes do not wander. They settle, and in that settling, something sacred is revealed. To be seen through such a gaze is to be received without expectation. You are not being scanned or measured. You are not being compared. Instead, you are being held in a space that allows you to unfold naturally as a flower opens only when the light is right. This is the kind of gaze that arises when the heart is still and the mind has stepped aside. It does not rush to define or conquer. Simply remains present. There is a parable told in a mountain monastery of a monk who spent 10 years in solitude, meditating on the nature of truth. One day, he descended the mountain and came to a crowded marketplace. There, amid the noise and barter, he locked eyes with a small child. The child said nothing. The monk said nothing. But in that gaze, the monk saw everything. The innocence of being, the quiet strength of joy, the entire unfolding of life in one breathless moment. He returned to the monastery and wrote, "What I sought in silence for a decade, I found in the eyes of one who had not yet learned to speak." In such a gaze, the truth arrives not in words, but in A's recognition, not of roles or stories, but of essency. When a man looks at you in this way, it is not because he wants something from you. It is because he sees something in you. And in that moment, he is not loving your form, your history, or your perfection. He is loving your being. This is why true love has little to do with the eyes alone and everything to do with the awareness behind them. 1,000 glances may pass across a person each day, but very few are pure. Many are distracted. Some are self-centered. Others are veiled in unconscious motives. But the gaze of presence, the gaze that reveals affection rooted in stillness, does not flinch. It does not clutch. It does not hurry. In everyday life, this may appear in subtle ways. A man may look at you when you speak, not out of duty, but with a kind of quiet reverence, as though each word is a thread in a larger tapestry he's learning to understand. He may not look away when you grow emotional, when silence stretches between you, or when you are unguarded. This kind of gaze holds without holding on. It allows space, and in that space you are allowed to exist. The 11th century Persian philosopher Al-Ghazali once wrote, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." In the presence of sacred love, this unity of vision becomes real. The eyes do not merely observe. They merge. They touch without touching. They feel without grasping. What they touch is not the skin, but the soul. In nature, you might observe this in how an animal acknowledges you without fear. Deer standing at the edge of the woods may meet your eyes for a brief moment. It does not ask for anything. It does not panic or approach. But in that exchange, there is peace. The deer sees you, not the noise around you, not the masks you wear. It sees only the essence. And somehow, that is enough. There is a gentle kind of love that arises not from need, but from still awareness. And when you are the recipient of such a gaze, you begin to remember something forgotten. You remember how it feels to be met where words fail. To be touched not by hands, but by understanding. To be loved not for what you do, but simply because you are. From the stillness of the eyes, let us now move to the stillness of the moment. For in the quiet greeting of a man who pauses before he speaks, there lies a sacred message. One that often goes unnoticed, like the hush before dawn or the breath between waves. If he pauses, it is because you matter. This may seem simple, but in a world that rushes to speak, to fill silence, to move on, it is anything but common. When someone takes a moment to be fully present before they address you, they are not hesitating. They are honoring. They are creating a space into which their words may fall with care, not collision. There is a story from the Zen tradition of a wandering monk who was known for his long silences before responding to any question. One day, a student impatiently asked, why do you always wait before answering?" The monk replied, "Because I must first return to myself, only then can I meet you." In his pause, he was not preparing words. He was preparing presency. When a man pauses before he greets you, it is not about formality. It is about intention. The space before the words is where love gathers itself. It is where the mind quiets, where breath deepens, where the heart opens. In that moment, he is not just speaking us to you, he is arriving with you. Kind of greeting is like standing before a sacred door. You do not barge in, you take a breath, you align yourself, you knock gently, and then you wait, not because you are unsure of what's behind the door, but because you respect it. In daily life, you may notice this. When a man meets your eyes and takes a small breath before he speaks, he is not rushing. He is not reaching. He is as landing. Perhaps he smiles softly, not out of habit, but because something in your presence brings ease. Perhaps he says your name, not immediately, after a moment of real noticing. These pauses are not empty. They are full of meaning. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once taught, "He who knows how to pause knows how to speak. Words that follow silence are more likely to be true. Actions that rise from stillness are more likely to endure. Love that pauses lasts." In nature, there is a rhythm to pause that precedes every great unfolding. Before the storm, there is stillness. Before the bud opens, there is waiting. Even the bird, before it sings, takes a breath so full of song it must be shared. And so, too, in love, the pause is not absence, it is preparation. It is the bow before the offering. In this way, the man who pauses before he speaks to you is not hesitating. He is aligning. Aligning with his brain, aligning with his truth, aligning with the sacredness of the moment that involves you. And that alignment is a gift more precious than any words he may say next. Love is not in the noise. It is in the space we create for another to be fully present. It is in the way we allow silence to hold meaning, not discomfort. It is in the way we slow down, because what stands before us is worth the stillness. And so we return to the heart of the matter. Not just to understand how a man greets you when he is truly moved, to understand how we show up for love. Do we pause before we speak? Do we see before we act? Do we allow ourselves the stillness in which truth can rise? When a man greets you with a soft gaze and a sacred pause, he is not performing. He is ye present. He is not chasing. He is ye arriving. And in his stillness, you are invited to find your own. Let these reflections be not merely thoughts, but practices. Let the gaze that sees you without expectation remind you to see others without armor. Let the pause before words be an invitation to breathe more slowly, to speak more gently, to love more clearly. In the end, the truest love does not come with noise, with spectacle, or with urgency. It comes in a quiet moment, a still gaze, a sacred pause. And in those moments, something ancient awakens, something wordless but real. And you know, you are seen, you are safe, you are loved, not as a possession, but as a presence. Now, here is the truth that makes this more than about a man. It is the turning point inward. How do you greet yourself each morning? Do you rush past your reflection like a stranger, or do you pause, breathe, and look into your own eyes like someone worth meeting again? Because the way a man greets you reflects how you've taught your soul to be received. If he greets you with reverence, it is because you've begun to walk through life like someone sacred. This video is not just about love. It is about recognition, about stillness, about awakening to what presence truly means. Watch this again, not to learn about someone else, but to remember something ancient within yourself. In the quiet greeting of love, may you always hear the sound of truth, and may you always answer it with presence.